Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a concept. Well, for so long, it's been strictly the stuff of science fiction, right?
Yeah,
Invisibility technology.
right. Cloaking devices, Harry Potter, all that kind of thing.
Exactly. But here's the fascinating truth. It's actually no longer just a fantasy.
It's becoming surprisingly real
Yeah.
and moving fast.
Yeah, evolving at an astonishing pace. Our specific focus for this deep dive is something called quantum stealth.
Mm,
We've got a detailed report and a forecast analysis, too, both from Hyperstealth Biotechnology Corps. We're going to break down its surprising origins, how it actually works, its really wide-ranging applications, think battlefields, but maybe even personal life down the line.
it has huge implications.
For sure. And we'll look at who's leading the charge globally and what the future might hold.
Sounds good.
Our mission, as always, is to basically pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from these sources, give you a shortcut to getting up to speed on this really cutting-edge tech.
Yeah, cut through the noise.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. What exactly is quantum stealth, and why is it creating such a buzz?
Okay, yeah, good place to start. Because that name, quantum stealth, it can definitely be a little deceptive.
Oh, how so?
Well, despite the sort of sci-fi ring to it, it actually has nothing to do with quantum physics.
Really? Nothing?
Nope, it's a term that was coined by Hyperstealth Biotechnology Corp. They're a Canadian company that specializes in camouflage tech.
Ah, okay. So it's more branding then.
Pretty much. Simply put, it refers to a unique material, a light-bending material, designed to make objects or even people seem partially invisible.
How does that work, like partially invisible?
You can kind of picture it like this. The material redirects light waves around whatever's behind it,
Mm.
a bit like how water flows and bends around a rock in a stream.
Okay, so it's not quantum mechanics, it's manipulating light itself. That's still quite something. How does that light bending actually work, technically?
So it operates on principles of light refraction, and it uses something called lenticular lenses.
Lenticular lenses, like those novelty cards that change picture when you tilt them.
Sort of, yeah. Similar underlying idea, but obviously much more sophisticated. Think of them as like uh, tiny, perfectly engineered parallel strips of magnifying glass. They're designed to precisely redirect the light.
Got it.
So the material essentially bends the background light around the object or person behind the sheet. That's what obscures them.
Okay.
And here's a really key distinction. This isn't active camouflage. It's not like those OLED screens or fiber displays you see in films, where a surface actively changes its look using power.
Right. No power needed.
Exactly. And what's really impressive is how broadly effective it is. It pretty much functions like a cloaking device across multiple light spectrums.
Multiple. You mean like...
We're talking visible light, obviously, but also ultraviolet, infrared, which means thermal imaging.
Ah, so it hides heat signatures too.
Yes, and even shortwave infrared. It just works passively across all of them.
Wow. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. That passive aspect, working across multiple spectrums without needing any power. That seems like a huge deal.
It's a total game changer. No batteries, no heat signature from the device itself, no power drain, just optics.
Why is that specific combination so significant? And, I mean, given how advanced it sounds, this wasn't an overnight thing, was it? Can you walk us through its journey?
You're absolutely right. The passive nature is key. And no, definitely not overnight. The journey to quantum stealth has been, well, pretty fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
The initial experiments looking into adaptive camouflage and non-power visual distortion, they actually started way back in the early 2000s.
Okay, so over 2 decades ago.
Yeah. Then fast forward to 2011, that's when Hyperscale first announced they were developing this thing they called quantum stealth.
Right.
Took a while longer, but by 2019, things got serious. They filed patents on the tech, and crucially, they showed off a working prototype.
A working prototype. What could it do?
That 2019 version demonstrated 4 really key capabilities. 1, it could bend light in both visible and infrared spectrums.
Okay, that multi-spectrum thing again.
Exactly.
Okay.
2, required 0 power source. 3, it was made of thin and, importantly, potentially inexpensive material. And 4, it was scalable. You could potentially use it for small things or scale it up for, say, military vehicles or civilian uses.
Scalable and inexpensive. That sounds like a recipe for widespread use eventually.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
The evolution kept going into the 2020s. They started doing extensive testing with actual military-grade field equipment.
Okay, real-world conditions.
And now, from 2024 onwards, we're really seeing governments and private defense firms getting seriously interested in, commercializing it.
That is a rapid progression. Concept, prototype, military testing, and now commercial interest, all within, what, 15 years or so?
Roughly, yeah. Things really accelerated after that 2019 prototype.
So moving beyond the pure cool factor, which is undeniable, what are the practical applications? Where would we actually see quantum stealth making a difference?
Well, the most obvious and probably most impactful area is military applications. No question.
Right. And concealment.
Massive concealment possibilities for personnel, for equipment, making them invisible to things like drones, night vision goggles, thermal scanners.
That would change battlefield awareness completely.
Absolutely. Imagine camouflaging big assets like tanks, artillery pieces,
Perfect.
even ships potentially.
Yeah.
And think about urban warfare, sniper ops, recon missions.
Yeah, anywhere where not being seen is critical.
Exactly. Where detection is just not an option. But its use goes beyond just the front lines.
How so?
Think about security and intelligence. You could have truly stealthy operations for special forces. Or maybe new ways to protect sensitive infrastructure or even VIPs from being targeted.
Protecting against targeting, like from drones or smart weapons.
Precisely. Then there's aerospace and naval stuff. Stealth enhancements for aircraft, for submarines, making their radar signatures, their thermal signatures, much harder, maybe impossible to pick up.
Okay, those defense and security applications are pretty clear and kind of scary in a way. But what about civilian uses? Is there relevance for, people outside the military intel world?
Oh, absolutely. It's not all military. Think about civilian and emergency services.
What?
Well, imagine a disaster zone, right? Rescue teams might need to move specialized gear or even themselves without being seen. Maybe by surveillance drones from unfriendly parties or just to get into difficult areas discreetly.
Ah, okay, I can see that. Rescue ops in hostile environments.
Yeah. What's really fascinating here is just how these applications could fundamentally reshape how things are done in so many different fields. It really extends way beyond just traditional military thinking into, public service, safety.
It broadens the scope significantly. Okay, so you mentioned hyperstealth, and Canada pioneered this. Who else is in the race now? Is it a global competition?
Oh, it's very much a global race.
Oh.
Several countries are already in what we call an advanced stage of development.
Besides Canada.
Right. So Canada, obviously, being the origin with hyperstealth, they're reportedly very close to being production ready. Then you have the United States. Defense agencies there are apparently testing this stuff for DARPA.
DARPA, right. The advanced research guys.
Exactly. Them and also special operations units. Then there's China. Their state-run labs are working hard on something called metamaterials for light refraction.
Metamaterials.
Sounds complex.
They are. Basically artificially engineered materials with properties you don't find in nature, specifically designed to manipulate light waves. The UK's Ministry of Defense has shown a lot of interest in thermal and visual cloaking prototypes, and Russia is also in the game, developing adaptive camouflage using nanocoating tech.
Nanocoatings. So super thin layers.
Yeah, interacting with light at a microscopic, almost atomic level.
Wow. Okay, that's the advanced group. Who's likely to catch up? Well, several countries are positioned to make strides. India's Defense Research and Development Organization, the DRDO, they're experimenting with adaptive and multispectral camouflage. Israel is always very active in battlefield optics and developing anti-drone stealth tech.
Makes sense for them.
And both South Korea and Japan have incredibly strong materials science research bases. That really positions them well for future innovation here.
So it's a crowded field.
Definitely. And that 2025 forecast analysis we looked at, it actually puts numbers on this, readiness levels on a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, interesting. How does it break down?
It shows Canada leading with a perfect 10 for readiness.
Yeah.
The USA is right behind at 9. Then China at 8, Russia 7, UK 6, Israel 5, India 4, Japan 3, and South Korea at 2.
That really paints a clear picture of the current landscape. Canada and the U.S. way out front, but China and Russia close behind.
Exactly. It highlights just how competitive this space is becoming.
So connecting all this to the bigger picture, what does the next, say, 15 years look like? What's the future outlook for quantum stealth, maybe out to 2040?
The projections are quite dramatic, honestly, if you break it down by sector. In the military, the field testing happening around 2025 is expected to evolve. By 2030, you could see it integrated directly into armor, maybe onto drones.
Built right in.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And by 2040, it might even become standard issue for certain elite units.
Standard issue and visibility. Wow. What about civilian security?
For civilian security, use might still be somewhat limited in 2025, but the forecast suggests it could expand quite a bit into law enforcement by 2030.
Okay.
And then, by 2040, this is where it gets wild. We might see widespread surveillance countermeasures becoming available. Things based on this tech,
Countermeasures, like ways for people to avoid detection.
possibly. And then there's commercial use. Starts niche around 2025, but could potentially move into things like automotive cloaking by 2030.
Cloaking for cars. Why?
Maybe for security. Aesthetics. Hard to say yet. But the projection goes even further. Maybe even personal stealth gear by 2040.
Personal stealth gear. Okay, now you're really blowing my mind. That's a concept to wrap your head around.
It really is.
It just makes you wonder, though, what are the broader ethical, strategic implications if this tech becomes widely available?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The potential for misuse is obviously significant. Espionage, assassination, smuggling, the list goes on.
Right. Easier to do bad things if you can't be seen.
But then there's the flip side. The potential rise of civilian countermeasures, like we just mentioned.
Yeah.
Ways to counter ubiquitous surveillance, facial recognition.
So a privacy tool?
It could be framed that way, yes.
Yeah.
But inevitably, it points towards an arms race, doesn't it? An escalating cycle of invisibility tech versus detection tech.
Always trying to counter the latest advantage.
Exactly. It really opens a Pandora's box of regulatory questions, ethical dilemmas,
Yeah.
and maybe even existential questions about observation and presence.
What an incredible deep dive this has been. Seriously fascinating. From its slightly misleading name and origins in a Canadian lab, all the way to this projected future of personal stealth gear. Quantum stealth really does feel like a paradigm shift in camouflage and stealth.
It definitely have that potential.
Canada's clearly leading the innovation right now, but as we've heard, other big players, the US, China, Russia, UK, they're catching up fast. It's a real global race.
It is.
And we've explored these incredibly widespread applications, revolutionizing warfare, sure, but also national security, maybe even civilian safety, and eventually personal privacy tools.
The possibilities are vast.
So it leaves you, the listener, with a lot to think about. What does this all mean? If we take that projection seriously, personal stealth gear, potentially available by 2040, how might that fundamentally change our idea of privacy or public space? What kind of unforeseen social impacts could just pop up from widespread personal invisibility in our everyday lives?
Yeah, that's the core question to wrestle with, isn't it? As this technology matures and possibly spreads, our public and private worlds, they're bound to change in ways we probably can't fully predict yet. It's certainly something to keep thinking about as we watch this unfold.